The Pittsburgh Steelers offense, they look pretty good. But every game there seems to be one little thing, one little side note that's negative. And in this one, it's some concerns for George Pickens. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalk or anywhere you get your podcasts. And today, we're going to keep it real straightforward. And I've done this in the past, and I'm trying really hard not to dig too deep into this. I have concerns for George Pickens. Not play-wise, the dude is a superstar. I've said that since day. I was the first one to say that, if we're going to be honest. You could go back. You could check the receipts. They're there. I said it 4 or 5 days into OTAs or minicamp. I don't even remember what one it was, but I know that I put out a podcast, one of these, and I said blatantly, George Pickens is a star. And I don't go back on that. I don't regret that. I don't not believe that. I think George Pickens is going to go down as one of the greatest Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers of all time if he stays with them his entire career and he stays healthy and nothing out of the ordinary happens. But I do have concerns. I have concerns because everybody gets frustrated, and that's going to be the first argument people give me for this. And I get it, and I'm going to address that first. Everybody gets frustrated. Everybody shows their frustration. That's okay. When you're a rookie and your team is struggling, it comes out even more. That's okay. And everybody's going to compare this to Deontay Johnson, and Deontay Johnson saying, well, everybody would get frustrated if they weren't having good games. Any player would. And I agree, and that's being shown. But George Pickens is 12 games into his NFL career. His team is winning, and he's got problems. That's concerning. It's concerning because he's making it so known. It's concerning because back-to-back games, George Pickens has needed to be calmed down on the sidelines or consoled by somebody because he isn't having the game that he wants to have, or they aren't finding him as much as he'd like to be found, or for some reason or another, he's not putting up the stat line that he wants to put up. And then he freaks out coming off the sideline yelling, throw me the blank ball. And the Steelers are winning. That's the concerning part. That's the difference between him and where Deontay Johnson was. Deontay Johnson did things differently. There was no heated frustration on the sideline of him screaming at Kenny Pickett or the coaching staff or whoever George Pickens was yelling at. There was none of that. After the game, he addressed it. George Pickens declined an interview in the locker room after the game. And that's the other thing. George seems to still be in a very childish mindset. And that's, again, okay. He's a rookie. Those things are going to happen. You can't expect perfection or maturity from a guy who's 12 games into his NFL career. That's understandable. That is why I take this entire approach with a side of caution. But at the same time, it's too early for you to be freaking out about circumstances that do not involve winning a football game. Your team is up. Things are looking good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is no need for you to be freaking out because you caught one pass for 2 yards and have been shut down. Unless you're upset about the game plan, then that's different. If George Pickens is upset because for the third time this season there isn't a game plan designed for him, that's understandable. Because there should be. There should never be a moment where George Pickens isn't involved in what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing to trying to win a football game. He's not in the right to be upset at Kenny Pickett for not finding him. He's not in the right for other guys getting the ball more than he is. He is in the right if he's mad at Matt Canada's play calling because it doesn't involve him at all. If that's the case, And Canada has said, okay, well, everybody is going after our top wide receiver. Then we have to change things up. Then that's just a bit too aggressive. There's no need to completely eliminate George Pickens because you're nervous that other teams are going to shut him down. Because against a team that's capable of scoring more than 16 points, this is a loss. And the offense worked well, but didn't work as well as it could have worked. And that one was on Canada. So that's the two sides of this. My worry here is that Pickens is not upset with the right side. That Pickens is a guy who is just heated because he wants the football. And that, as a rookie, 12 games into your career, you start to think of the past. You start to think of Hines Ward and Plaxico Burress. And yeah, maybe the media spotlight or whatever looked better than it was. But the stories I have heard is that those two could barely be in a room together because one would be upset that the other one was getting more attention than them. That's not great. Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. We all saw how that one ended. No good blood there whatsoever. And I'm very nervous that George Pickens is on the route of already being upset because he isn't the team's top target. And if that's the case, he's not the right fit anywhere because you don't need that in an NFL locker room. You don't get rid of him. You don't give up on him. You don't shut him down. You don't discipline him. You don't yell at him. You don't do anything. You educate him. You teach him. You mentor him. It's still so early that you could sculpt George Pickens into whatever you want. My concern is that sometimes you get sculpted by the wrong things and they turn out bad. And then you turn out bad. Rotten, as some would say. And I just think George Pickens has so much talent that he is a superstar already here, that it would just be such a shame to watch him become a player that people are upset with all the time because of his attitude, because of his just willingness to showcase self above team. That's the difference. And, people call me a Deontay Johnson defender, and I think to a degree I am. But if you checked my Twitter during the Falcons game, you would see that not always. I like to admit when I'm wrong, and I was certainly wrong at some instances. He had a bad drop, really bad drop, and a fumble that I believed was actually a fumble. And those aren't good for Deontay Johnson, and they're not good for my argument that Deontay Johnson doesn't deserve the criticism. But I will stand strong in saying that Deontay Johnson handles bad situations much better than George Pickens. I'll also say that Deontay Johnson's 4 years into the league and is much more mature than George Pickens, and rightfully so. That's how that should be. But I don't think we should compare them. I think that's my point here, is that we shouldn't compare them. It should be Deontay Johnson is handling it like this. Okay, that's one story. George Pickens is having issues, and this is what George Pickens is doing. That's another story. Totally separate from each other. Both concerning. And I think George Pickens is way more concerning than Deontay's, at least from what we've seen.